I've been chasing whispers on the wind, dreaming of the places I've never been. Tired of standing still while time rolls by. Got one foot out the door, ready to fly.
Hey there, everybody. Mark Koep here with the Half of Mind podcast. And today we've got a gentleman here who has built a business from nothing, and we're going to learn how that journey happened. So, Carl, thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome. I'm happy to be here. It's been obviously a long journey for me, but here we are and we make the best of it.
And in this journey, let's go back to where it began and maybe share a little bit of your journey. So in the research leading up to this, I was reading some articles where you talked about in high school, you knew you wanted to start your own business and be your own entrepreneur, but there had to be some sort of motivation behind that. Why did you have that idea? Were your parents business owners? What motivated you to even want to go that route?
Well, no, I mean, my dad has always kind of dabbled around with side jobs and that type of stuff. He's mostly worked construction his whole life. But for me personally, I just remember being a teenager, and thinking, I just always had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, if you will. I just remember thinking that someday I'm going to develop a product and sell it around the world. That's always been kind of my thought. But, I had no idea how to get there, how to even accomplish that at that time. So, yeah, that's always been kind of I was always a kid that was tearing stuff apart just to see how it works, right? So I would get little electric motors out of RC cars or whatever it may be, and I would tear it all apart and kind of just figure out how everything works and then put it back together and have it work again. That was obviously the goal, was to take it apart, put it together and see it work again. So that was always me in a nutshell. And yeah, that's kind of where that came from. Early age, I've always been interested in business, anything related to business and everything in between.
So you have this idea in high school. Did you go to college after that, trade school? What did you do upon graduation?
Well, funny thing is, you mentioned high school. I actually never made it through high school. So, the highest education I have, growing up was 8th grade. I didn't go past 8th grade. I immediately started working directly. I graduated 8th grade and started working. Again, construction. My dad worked construction as long as I remember. So I kind of got into that, kind of created a lot of building skills, if you will, the actual skill of building something. And that has probably taught me a lot on just the idea of how things get put together and to make things structural and all that type of stuff.
So just a side story. Interesting conversations are going on in education. So we homeschool our kids, right? We've got 3 children. We homeschool our kids. And I was actually on a conversation last week with an investment group. I live in Wyoming, and this is an investment group in Wyoming. And the conversation came up about what does the economy look like in Wyoming in 10 years, and how do we design this system for 10 years from now? There was a bunch of academics on the call, so people that work for the University of Wyoming, and their response was, well, we need to build more schools. We need more universities in the state of Wyoming. And here I am, a business owner, an entrepreneur, and I'm working with AI and all this stuff. And I had the complete opposite idea, and I simply said, with the way technology is going today, I actually think we need less school, and we need more hands-on teaching people how to operate businesses and do things. And so your journey, and there's actually a lot of folks in your shoes who've been wildly successful, who've built products, who basically said, forget school, I'm going to go do this. And so let's go back to that moment. You're finishing 8th grade and you're like, clearly at that point, my guess is you're like, school's not for me, I want to go do something. And you're like, I'm going to go work in construction. You start making money, right? You're getting paid to do this. You're making money at this age. Right. What is going through your mind at that age? What are people saying to you? Or are they supportive of you? Or are they against you? What is your world like around you that helped form who you are?
Well, I wouldn't, growing up the way I did, very conservative family, it wasn't looked down upon necessarily, as long as I went and got a job. If I wouldn't have had a job and would have been, out partying or whatever, then it would have been frowned upon a lot by my family mostly, I would say. But that really, the school, I had no interest in school at that point in time. It was just the last thing on my mind and the last thing I wanted to do. I knew, everything I was taught in school. In my mind, I knew everything I needed to know And now I'm just going to make myself successful beyond this, own my own company. And that was always been my goal, to have my own company, and obviously started out working for somebody else, but that morphed into, I don't know if you are familiar with Newmar.
Yes.
They're here in Napanee. I actually worked for them for, I think it was like 5 years before I actually owned my first business. And so I learned a lot through working at Newmar as well. You know, how the RV market, obviously, and I worked in the slide out setting department. So I was really involved with a lot of putting the slide outs together and putting them in the unit, and hooking up all the electrical and plumbing and all that stuff. So it gave me a wide range of knowledge on, you know, when you think about everything that goes into an RV, it's like building a small house, essentially, as all the above that you do. So that's really, you know, taught me probably the most is when my time at Newmar. And I remember at that time talking to one of my coworkers, and we're talking, and I'm like, you know, I'm just not going to work here for the rest of my life or work for someone else. I'm going to do something on my own. I'm not sure what that is yet, but I will do something. And an opportunity came about to buy a local tree service company. I had a fairly small company, had 4 or 5 team members on it, had a couple bucket trucks and the things you need to do a tree service. And him and this coworker, we've been talking, you know, for a while, and we ended up buying the company, us two, as partners. So that's kind of where my whole journey started, really, is when I bought that first company and just quit my job and just started doing it. You know, I was young. I didn't really have a whole lot of things to take, had no kids, you know, and then had just gotten married, and we had plans to start a family, but it was, for us, it was in the distant future. So there wasn't a whole lot of responsibility as far as financial responsibility. So it became pretty easy for me to say, yeah, I'm just going to try it and see what happens, right? And so that's really where it started, and I kind of jumped into it.
So you said you're young. Give us a framework. How young? How old are you at this point in time?
Well, I'm 43, I think. Yeah, 43. When I bought that first company, I was 24, probably 23 or 24, maybe.
Okay, so you buy this tree service company. It exists. It's in existence.
Mhm.
What's the first thing you do when you take over this company other than starting to learn the business? Is there anything that you did to materially improve the business, to grow it? Like, what did you do at that point in time?
Well, I mean, our big push was to grow it. Obviously, we wanted to grow it into multiple crews and get some commercial contracts. That was a goal when we bought this. That was kind of the business plan, if you will. And we just jumped into it head first and started doing it. And I think the first 2 years we doubled our sales, and we got to a point where we kind of branched out, looked at commercial contracts and like the power lines and that type of stuff. And we got into that, picked up a couple contracts. This may have been in 3 years in. And we ended up, from the time we bought it, 3-4 years later, we had, I think, 4 or 5 crews. We had 16, 18 workers, team members, and, you know, multitude of trucks, different bucket trucks and vehicles, trailers, pickup trucks, and a lot of equipment that we'd haul around to different job sites. And, you know, that's really when the idea of, well, let's back up a little bit. So we always had sort of an issue with hitches. That was one thing that stood out to me. Like, we're always missing a hitch for this trailer, or this truck has a hitch on the back of the bed. Well, this crew already left. So we never had the right hitch for the right trailer at the right time. And it became frustrating because we were always buying new hitches. We just run to the local auto parts store and buy another one because it was on the other truck or whatnot. So that's really where sort of this idea stemmed from, is right then and there. So I, you know, by trade, over the years, I did a lot of side jobs with welding, and I built some trailers and all that type of stuff. So I knew very well, you know, with my past experience in construction, built things, and I kind of self-taught myself how to weld and get into that. Built some trailers and obviously had some mentors to kind of coach me through on how to build a trailer. when I say trailer, I'm talking more of the flatbed trailers to haul equipment, that type of thing. And they kind of walked me through the structural components of a trailer and where the stresses are. It was all kind of me seeking that out. I didn't necessarily ever go to school for that. It was just kind of self-taught, seeking it out, knowing people that had built trailers and kind of asking them. And so by trade, I knew how to weld, how to build things, how to fix things, all that stuff. So, back to the hitches, one day I was just kind of popped into my head. I'm like, what if I would stack a bunch of these like receiver tubes on top of each other, weld them together, and put a shank on it to go into the truck, and I would create a ball mount that would have all the balls that we use, the different ball sizes. There's like 3 different ball sizes, and there's also a pintle trailer which has a ring. So I incorporated all that in one hitch, and my thought was if I would build one for each truck that we have, and then lock them on with a keyed lock that the crew wouldn't have. I would have the key, so they could never take it off. So yeah, that's essentially what I did. I built one for every truck, and kind of locked them on each truck. And the issue of missing hitches or not having the correct hitch or ball size or whatnot, that all kind of disappeared. We got rid of that problem.
Well, so as you invent this, like before this, you've gone from working for your dad in construction and working in construction. Then you worked for a corporation, a large corporation, Newmar. And then you get this idea to start this business. So somebody listening to this, let's put a framework around that. As you're doing this, you're learning the tools of the trade, and you're starting to build. You're starting to build the reps on how to run a business and how to operate a business. Now you buy this company that has employees, and then you start growing it. Were there major learning blocks along the way? What challenged you? What did you have to overcome? And if you're advising somebody who's listening to this who wants to go on a similar journey, what's your piece of advice to them on moving that ball forward?
I mean, obviously the biggest, probably the single biggest thing, first you have to start, right? If you have an idea in your head and you hesitate jumping into it and starting it, that's step number one. If you never start, you're never going to get there, no matter what. I mean, the biggest thing I've learned probably through all that is just kind of taking the leap and saying, I'm going to try it. And if it fails, big deal, we'll go do something else, that type of approach. And I kind of approached it not scared at all, I guess, would be the simple way of putting it. And yeah, starting is a big key, getting started. And then also, there's so many people out there, and everyone knows people that are doing it or have done it or anything like that. So there's always the resource of going to them and asking for advice or help or whatever it is that you need at the time, during this process. So there's always people there to help if you're willing to. A lot of times we hesitate asking people because we don't want to let them know that we're doing something that may or may not fail. So we kind of hesitate a little bit and kind of keep it to ourselves, maybe sometimes too much. But I think there's a lot of people out there that are excited for you if you seek out the right people. There's obviously a lot of people that want the worst for you too. So there's that side of it as well. So you have to discern who those people are that are actually helpful and the ones that really don't care that much.
So you've basically, what I hear, and this goes to some of the other conversations we have, is the permission. And some folks go externally for that permission. To myself, it sounds like you have an internal drive. You've already given yourself permission to fail and go do it. So
yeah.
Whatever that avenue is to get that permission, if you can give yourself permission to go out there and fail, that's how you go into it. So now you've created this hitch, you've invented this thing, and you've got it on your units. And if I've read the stories right, people start noticing it, and they're like, "Hey, can I get one of those from you?" And now, when you let me ask you this real fast: when you created this hitch, did you think that this was it? Like this was going to be the product, or were you literally just solving a problem for yourself?
No, I had no intentions when I created this to sell it as a product or even make a business out of it. Never crossed my mind at the time. I was focused on our tree service business, what we're doing, where we're going, and that was my drive at that time. We were on a mission, and we quadrupled the sales of that tree service company in the first 4 or 5 years from what we bought it at. So it was created a lot of value in driving that business forward. But yeah, had no intention of making a business out of it or even thought of it as possible until there's some people that were in similar business that we were, and they started asking questions. Hey, where can I get a hitch like that? Can you make me some? And started getting that from multiple different directions, and that's when it really kind of hit me. I think is when I heard more and more of that. I'm like, maybe there's a business opportunity here that I'm missing out on. I started thinking about this and went and talked to some trusted people that have been in sort of that type of industry, if you will, and they're like, yeah, if you're solving a problem, that's a big deal for a lot of people out there in this local community. If you have a handful of people that would buy it, duplicate this across the world. I mean, there's a lot of people that need this. So that really is when my brain started spinning about this.
Okay, so now you're running a business, it's growing, it's succeeding, and now you have this product and you're like, hey, there's something here, right? Like this may be it. So I mean, let's put us into that framework. I'm guessing you're doing pretty well with the tree business. Like you've got some money coming in, you got some revenue coming in, it's growing, but now you're going to take a leap potentially with this other product. What's that process like? Is it an overnight decision, or do you give yourself a year? How do you plan that out?
That was definitely more of a process. I ended up completely selling out of the tree service company because I knew if I'm involved in that, I'll never put the focus into this on how it needs to be to make it work. And it wasn't an overnight decision at all. It was more, I would say, months, probably half a year. We, talked about this. I was just newly married at the time, and that there was a lot of conversations there with my wife about, do we do this? It's a good opportunity. Just trying to wrap our head around what exactly it'll take to accomplish this. And so yeah. And then ended up making the decision to just kind of sell out of the tree service and just dive into this full time. And the first couple of years of it, my wife actually got a full-time job, had a full-time job. Well, good paying job, actually. And that's really what was a big part of us getting through those first, 3 to 5 years. For sure.
That was a conscious decision on her part. You guys discussed this. We're going to go for in order to make the business happen, I need you, dear, to go get a job so we can pay the bills. So this is a conscious decision. She's a partner in this for you to build this business. And so one of the things I read is you have a patent on this first product that you built. So you go get a patent, you start making these things. Take us through this journey now as Gen Y Hitch starts to build. It's not a success overnight, correct? This is something you build up over time. Can you encapsulate that journey between that decision where she's going to go get the job and you're up to about 3 or 4 years in?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was much harder doing this than it was for my first venture, the tree service company. That was sort of established, and we just kind of bought it and grew it from there. The name was out there and everything else. This was creating everything from scratch, right? We had to create a brand. Branding has always been very important to me. I always, kind of looked up or studied very popular brands. I've always kind of watched them and just to see how they do things and all that. So I had a sense of how important brand is. So, the name had to work with what we were doing and all that. So, the first, I'd say 3 or 4 years were definitely tough years. I mean, literally, I don't think I took any money out of the business at all for that time period. And my wife obviously had a full-time job, and she's really what paid all the bills and made the mortgage payment and all that. So yeah, it was not an overnight success at all. Many people think so. They look at us now and they're like, I even today I have people come up to me and they're like, hey, I didn't know this, this happened. When did this all happen? And they're like, an overnight success, and I'm like, yeah, overnight success that took 10 years, if you call that an overnight success. But that's I guess kind of points to how little people pay attention to what you're doing. If if it doesn't revolve around them, they really don't pay that much attention to what you're doing. I mean, they really don't. Because people I've hung out with and knew very well think this is an overnight success. I've
People
been
who
working
know.
on this forever, dude. So yeah, it's definitely been a tough road, but it's also taught me a lot. Obviously, if I were to do this again, it would look way different. It
That
would
was
happen much quicker.
Well, so let me pause right there, so because that was going to be my next question.
Mm.
With the experience you have of getting where you're at now, if you were to go back and advise let's go back and advise the eighth grader who's starting out in construction, and if you can advise each of those people along the way, the guy that's working at Newmar, the guy that's got the tree business, and the guy who's got this idea, what would your advice? Because those are obviously people in different places in their lives, right? How would you
Right.
advise each of those folks along their route?
Well, I mean, obviously, I would have definitely, if I would advise my eighth grade self, I don't know. I mean, that's a tough one. I don't know if I would do much different from that point to when I bought my first business. I mean, there was a lot of time in there where I kind of did different things, and that really taught me a lot of structural building, kind of the engineering side of me really came in those early 5 or 6 years, from the day I started working after eighth grade up to about 23, 22, 23 when I bought the first business. That really was kind of my college, if you will, but it was all just me understanding what I needed to learn and going and doing, working in that specific area or industry, whatever it may have been. So I used to help a guy build trailers after work. So I'd have a normal job. Then I wanted to know and understand how to structurally build a trailer and all that. So I kind of voluntarily at times helped the guy do it after my normal job. So in the early years, I don't know if I would advise much different. It's more, building a product and a brand. It's very difficult in this day and age. I will give it that. And I think I wouldn't necessarily do a whole lot of things different. I could just speed up the time that it took for us to get it accomplished. If I would advise myself back when I started building Gen Y and the hitches, I would probably, I could advise myself to do things to make it happen very quicker, much quicker. Marketing, people. I think about the first person I hired was a salesperson. We kind of stuck with that and just kind of let it go with that. I would advise on hiring a good financial person to kind of keep the numbers all straight, because the first 3 or 4 years, our books didn't have a whole lot of organization to it, if you will. I mean, I remember we could care less about what it looked like. All we were doing is marketing the product and selling it and building it. We didn't look at financials that much. Are we making money? Are we not? We didn't talk about any of that stuff. So, but in later years, I kind of figured out that how important it was to maybe be a little more conscious of what happened earlier, because we wasted a lot of money on marketing and whatever it may have been. We wasted a lot of money too. So I would probably revamp that whole idea of on how to approach some of that stuff.
So within your business today, how many employees do you currently have?
I think we're in the low 80s, something like that.
And these are all in the U.S. So you're
Mm-hmm.
hiring people locally that are building careers and jobs and lives within your business that you
Mm-hmm.
created. What's that like
Yeah,
for you? What is that?
a lot of responsibility. No, it definitely at times a lot of the stress and the anxiety and everything in between that goes with being a business owner and being responsible for, like you mentioned, the 80 some families. It can take a toll on you if you don't figure out a way to manage your own stress levels and your own kind of mental focus, if you will. There's definitely a side to that you have to manage that appropriately, or you will absolutely kill yourself. At the end of the day, I mean, you'll do the best that you can and try to make the best decisions for the company going forward and all that. And there's so many things that are out of your control. Once you come to that realization that if you only could try to control things that you can control, make decisions you can make, there's so many what ifs that can happen. And that really doesn't matter. Most of those are out of your control. You can't even make a difference if you wanted to. Once I got to that realization, on that kind of narrows your focus down to a very, the day-to-day decisions, small decisions. That's really where the the successes come after making a bunch of small decisions along the way. Then the successes start coming, and you kind of see that happening, and that's really kind of, you got to have a conversation with yourself on how to get to that point. You can sit there and stress out about everything with the economy to this to that, and it's really, most of that stuff is out of your control. You can't even make a difference if you wanted to.
So building this business, I mean, most people would look at, well, I'll be honest, when I look at it, it's a hitch. I buy it at the hardware store. And you've built this business around this industry. So talk a bit about your products. Like what do you currently provide now? And then after that, I'm going to ask about the future of Gen Y Hitch, where you're going with this thing. So when you look at this, I mean, basically you created a business inside of an industry that most people would never even consider, which is cool. That's actually a really good thing, right? You want to be places where other people are not. So you've built this business in this industry. Talk about your product line, who you sell to, who your customers are. What is Gen Y Hitch today?
Well, I mean, yeah, the as far as it's just a hitch, we get that a lot. It's just a hitch. We get it a lot from our customers, and we even talk about it internally. Yeah, it's just a hitch, but we've made it cool. There's so many things I could sit here and say, oh, that's just a motorcycle. Yeah, but it's a Harley Davidson. There's so many different things you can talk about the same lines, and it really is, we've made it cool. So who would have thought you could make hitches cool? But we've done that. We've kind of created that kind of group. We always reference it to kind of the Harley Davidson group. They need a Harley Davidson. These people need a Gen Y Hitch. So that all comes down to marketing and how you portray your message to your customers. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to be said about a hitch other than, the original hitch kind of allowed us to get into different markets. We're now, kind of dabbling in RV and marine, and it's all these different markets. A lot of people don't understand how massively huge the automotive market is. It's not just automotive that is our ideal customers. It's automotive, marine. You think about construction, contractors. I mean, it's a vastly large market that we sell to. So there's a lot of room for a lot of people, because if we were try to build all the hitches that are sold, we couldn't even possibly do it. It's impossible. So, we always talk about, internally selling the sizzle, not the steak. Yes, it's a hitch, but we sell the features and benefits of our hitch, why we're different, and how it's different. We show that on videos, and that's really what sells it to the customer. It is a simple phrase: sell the sizzle, not the steak. Everyone has steaks. You can go to every restaurant here in town and get a steak. Are they top-notch steaks at every restaurant? No. So that's kind of the approach we've taken with this. Also, just to add to that, a lot of times we joke, we're a marketing agency that happens to sell hitches. That's kind of how we phrase it internally here. And we're aware of that. Like that's kind of the whole point of this. If you look at different brands that have been created, look at Red Bull, for example. I'll use them. What do they actually have? They have an energy drink that is mediocre at best, right? But they're a massive, huge company, and they sell everywhere, almost in every country, I think, at this point in time. So that's really the kind of the example of, we are a marketing agency that happens to sell energy drinks, the same type of approach. So yeah, I mean, as far as all the products we have, I mean, we have anything from bumper pull hitches to like the gooseneck hitches that go on the gooseneck trailer itself. And obviously the torsion flex has really sort of validated us and put us on the map as far as having a extremely good product, valid product, right? A product that truly makes a difference. And when you tow with torsion flex compared to hard connection, night and day difference. I mean, you will physically feel the difference. That's how much improvement in your ride quality there is with torsion flex. And we have a pretty solid patent on that. anything used in a hitch type scenario, we got that pretty much covered. So it's very effective, maintenance free, and heavy duty. That's really what we sell a lot of our products onto is heavy duty, made in the USA as well. 9%, 99.5% of our products are built right here in Napanee, and so that's part of it as well. We really kind of push that made in the USA. RV, we've started to get more and more into RV the last couple of years. That's really been a push of ours to get into RV. There's a lot of runway in the RV market for us, and not just with our fifth wheel hitches, but we also build receiver hitches and things like that for the RV industry. And we're looking to get more and more into that.
Well, Carl, I won't take much more of your time because this has been amazing. So first off, let's summarize this, folks. If you have an idea and you're to go for it, you have the permission to go for it.
Yes.
If you can't give yourself permission to go for it, find a good network of people who will give you that permission to go for it. Plan accordingly. Don't just dive in blind, but take the risk. Go out there and do it. And as you build that business, one of the things I love about the materials you put out in other communications is the team you've built around you. And we've actually interacted with your team members. We, on our end, believe they're some of the best people in the industry. We're very impressed with the folks you have working for you. So you found good people to work in your organization. And Carl, I appreciate your time today. Is there anything, like last words, you would want to leave to somebody who's listening to this, who is considering going out and doing whatever it is that they think is outside the box?
No, obviously, keep it simple. Sometimes we as human beings tend to overthink, complicate things to a point where we ourselves don't understand what we're doing. Keep it simple. It's really, I always tell our team, I'm glad you brought up the team. We do have an absolute, the best team that is out there. A lot of times I talk to people now, I'll be like, our secret sauce is in our team. That's how Gen Y is so successful. We have a great team, and they just kick butt every day, and they're hungry, motivated. Another quick fact about our team: our average age in our low 80 employees is 33 years old. Can you imagine that? It's pretty young for a company to have the average age at 33 years, but we're proud of that. I think we have a lot of good young talent here. And so, back to keep it simple and go for it. The largest step you can take if you have an idea is to start. If you don't start, you're never going to make it. I can promise you that with 100% certainty. You're not going to make it if you don't start. And I think everyone understands that, but do they fully understand that? Because I meet so many people that have a great idea, a great business idea. They pitch it, and it is a great idea, but they don't have the mental capacity to ever start. And, you meet them a year later again, and they're like, I'm still, trying to get it perfect or this and that. You never start. And that's the biggest downfall I see with a lot of younger entrepreneurs is just start. That's step number one.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I just got an email from somebody earlier today that's a network in my mentorship group, and they commented in the email. They said, I was talking to this person that was a third party, and they commented how they had met this business that was the most innovative business they've met in Wyoming, and it was your business, Be My Business. I spoke to that person a year and a half ago. They didn't say that to me at that time. I'd never heard that. And I realized as I read it, and it adds up with what you said here. And I want to give this advice to people who are listening. As you're going through this process, unlike school, unlike sports the way they are today, you are not getting participation trophies when you're doing this. There is not somebody standing behind you going, good job, success, yay, yay, yay. When you're doing this, correct me if I'm wrong, Carl, there's nobody saying yay, yay, yay. It's like you actually don't know you're doing what you're doing until you hit some sort of milestone, obviously. But as you're doing it, there's no cheerleader just going, woohoo, you're succeeding. Am I wrong in that?
No, being an entrepreneur is one of the loneliest places you can be until you've had some success. It becomes that's when people kind of want to rally around you. But, then yourself, you got to kind of look at it and say, these people weren't here when I was struggling, and these people were with me all the way. These are the people I picked, the ones that were with me from the start and stuck it out. No, I agree. There's no cheerleading. It seems sometimes people would rather see you fail than succeed. Just being around them when you're going through the process of starting a company, it's very difficult to get people to rally people with on your side, right? I've come to a point where that's very manageable for me as well. I kind of go into expecting that now. So it's really not anything new for me. But yeah, definitely, if you're starting out, you'll definitely get that for sure. Don't be discouraged by that. It's not, those are small minded people will 10 years later, you'll talk to them and they're at the same spot they were 10 years before. And that's not me. I don't want to ever be in the same spot I was yesterday. That's my goal every day, is to get a little bit better than the day before. And really that's all you need to drive towards, and you'll end up in a great spot. I guarantee it.
Carl, I appreciate your time today. I hope our listeners got a bunch of value out of this. I know I did. My hope is that we can check in a year from now, do another one of these, and see where you're at a year from now. Everybody, Carl Borkholder from Gen Y Hitch. Go check them out at genyhitch.com if you're an RV or if you tow anything. American-made company, the best that's out there. Check them out, buy their product, and definitely let them know you appreciate their time. Carl, thank you.
For sure. Thank you. Thanks for having me.